right, I think we are getting ready to go live, and we should be live. Hello and welcome. I'm Jess from Raising My Teenage Toddler, and this is this week's Toddler Tip Tuesday. And we are talking all about using a toddler tasting tray this week. And this was an interesting one. I got quite a few DMs about this one, but so what the whole concept is getting your picky eater, your toddler, to try to eat a few different foods that they wouldn't normally want to eat. So moms and dads, if you have a picky eater or someone who just is a very distracted eater and constantly wants to get up from the table, this Toddler Tip Tuesday is definitely for you. You're going to want to listen in and see if this might help some of your toddlers out. And basically what you do is you just get a muffin tin or a cupcake pan, whatever you want to call it. And I see a few people in the chats. Hello. And if you stay with us, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. But what you basically do, sorry, jumping around there, I just saw a bunch of comments pop up. But what you want to do is grab a muffin tin or a cupcake pan, you might call it, depends. And you're just going to fill it with different foods. And actually, I'll drop the blog post that goes with this in the comments later, but there's a lot more information in the blog post itself. But basically, that's the entire method, is to just put different foods in the tray instead of using a plate. You could use a divided plate, but there's the novelty factor. They kind of like using the muffin tin because it's something different. So let's dive right in and talk a little bit more about this. So just imagine for a minute you've cooked a meal, and I'm sure we've all been there. It's taken you forever. You're so excited. You're finally done cooking. You want to sit down and eat, and there's your squirmily wiggly toddler. They either just want to bounce up from the table, they refuse to eat, they're having a complete meltdown, or they just want to take one bite and they want to leave, they bounce off. This kind of combats all of that at once. Toddlers are naturally curious and they love to explore, and mealtime moments tend to slow them down, so they don't like it. This is a way for you to kind of harness that natural curiosity, that natural tendency to want to explore by using the muffin pan or cupcake pan, whatever you want to call it. I'm using them interchangeably, but they're basically the same thing. So what you can do is create a low pressure experience for them to just kind of want to sit and play. And then you'll notice that as they're kind of playing with the food in the tin, there's kind of taste testing different things and doing different things with it, especially if you have dipping sauces and stuff in it. So here's how it kind of works. So you use your muffin tin, get very tiny, tiny portions, and you don't want to fill every single tin either. You'll notice if you saw my post on Instagram today, or the picture that goes with the blog post, that I only had about half the circles filled. And that's because you only want to pick 5 to 6 different foods, and you're going to want to mix safe foods, like safe favorites, things you know they're going to eat, with a few new ones. They're more likely to try the new ones when it's paired with some of their safe, like comfort foods or favorite foods. And then, of course, put something fun in there. Think like dips. It could be ketchup if they like ketchup. It can be hummus. It could be ranch dressing, like any of those type things for vegetables that you can put in there. And the whole beauty of this method is that you're exposing them to a whole variety of different foods, and toddlers love choices. They love to show their independence and pick things. So by giving them little tiny portions but a whole bunch of different options, they get to kind of pick and choose and play with it a little bit. So you're kind of giving them some independence, you're letting them play a little bit, which kind of goes a long way, especially because there's so many different kinds of eaters out there, and you kind of want to work with their different eating personalities. Which reminds me, I want to make sure I say it at the end, and I'll put the link in there too, but we do have a new quiz up, completely free to take it, and it will help you identify your toddler's different eating personalities, because there's actually 6 different ones, and we kind of lump them all into picky, but not all toddlers are actually true picky eaters. So if you want to try out the quiz, it is at www.raisingmyteenagetoddler.com/quiz. And what you'll do is you'll take your quiz, and then after you put in your email, you'll get your results instantly right on the screen, and it will give you some immediate suggestions to try with your different types of eaters depending on the personality. And then I also email you immediately a guide for your particular toddler's eating personality. But the beauty of this method is that it actually works for a lot of those different 6 personalities. So jumping kind of right back in and bouncing around a little bit. I'm so sorry. But you also want to kind of think of, when you're filling out this tin, this muffin pan, a balance of things, right? So you want to maybe put in like a fruit you know they might like, and then maybe if you want like a second fruit that you want them to try. For your proteins, you kind of want to think, all right, what can I put in here? I think in the one video of my daughter, if you saw it online, there was like a shredded cheese. So you could do lunch meats, any of those kind of things for protein. Nuts, depending on the age of your toddler. We waited a while to introduce nuts just because of the choking hazard with my daughter, but she actually loves almonds. So that would be like a safe food I could put in there for her in one of her trays. And then again, with the dips, you could do like nut butters, you could do peanut butter, yogurt, Greek yogurt, anything they can dip in. And then I always try to put in some type of crunchy food, whether it's like crackers, puffs, pretzels, just depends on what your child's comfort foods are or what you're trying to expose them to. And then also, you always want to try to put in at least 1 or 2 new foods, something they haven't tried yet or something you're in the process of encouraging them to try, like as a new food. And remember, even if they don't like on the first or second exposure, it can take, depending on which body research you follow, but anywhere from 10 to 20 exposures before you really can tell if a child likes the food or not. So even if they don't like it when you're using this muffin tin, you want it to work the first time, just having them touch it, play with it, smell it, the food for the first time is a win. And then maybe the second, third, fourth time, they're willing to try it. So keep at it, keep going with it. And remember, your job as a parent, caretaker, grandparent, whatever the situation is, your job is to offer the food to your child. It is not your job to decide how much they eat. They decide. You kind of have to let them figure that part out on their own. And it's so hard. I'm a control freak, and it was so hard to relinquish that control with my daughter. It's something I still work on. But your job is to offer it. Their job is to decide how much to eat. So keep that in mind. And remember, even if they're just licking something, like let's say they dip, you're trying to introduce broccoli, and they're just dipping in whatever you have is for the dip. Them just licking it's a win. And eventually you'll work up to them eating it. And you can also try serving it 2 different ways, because you could try it like steamed versus raw. Like you could do it either way. So some questions a lot of people have about this safe food that tends to come up is, what if my toddler still only eats their safe food out of the tray? So again, even if they're just touching, smelling, or moving, let's say they just move that new food from one circle to an open one. They're still interacting with it, and every interaction is a step in the right direction. So keep going. And then what if they don't eat very much at all? That is a possibility. And some toddlers, my daughter's one who can be very rigid about certain things. Fortunate for me, this was not one of them, but you're just going to want to keep trying. You can even, it doesn't have to be a muffin tin, or you can even put different, the muffin wrappers, like the cupcake wrappers. Like go to the dollar store and get a bunch of different color ones or design ones and put them in there, since they're kind of going to be wasted, but that might encourage them. You just have to trust the process and keep going and stick with it. And then I get a lot of questions about, should this just be for snack time? You can use this for dinner. I've done it for lunch with my daughter. Like her entire lunch was pretty much decomposed in it. At one point, like she now eats like full on like turkey wraps, but it would be like shredded up cheese in one, turkey in one, like a whole wheat wrap, like ripped up into pieces, some dipping sauce. So you can go full out for every meal with this, and you just throw it in the dishwasher when you're done. So it's the beauty of it. So some of my tips for success, though, is remember that even if they just interact with it, like I said, it's a huge win. And if they build up to over several exposure, a tiny bite, it's a huge win, and celebrate it. Celebrate it any way you can. Remember to keep it low pressure. If you keep saying to them, just try one bite, they're not going to try, and they're probably going to dig their heels in. You just have to let them explore on the tray with the different food. Another thing you want to remember is to constantly rotate the foods, because you want to try to keep it exciting and keep the novelty of it going for as long as you can. And then again, always try pairing safe foods with new foods, and try to make sure that your safe foods are more like 3-4 of them, and you only have like 1 to 2 new foods. And then of course, play with different dips, whatever you want to try, to put in some of the circles as like a dipping, because that also encourages them to try new food if it's some type of dipping thing that they love, whether it be ranch, yogurt, hummus, any of the other ones that we talked about. So, a couple questions. So if anybody here has questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll scroll through and make sure that I see them now. But I do have some questions that came up from my email subscribers who saw this morning, and then some of my social media followers who sent DMs. So I'll go through those questions first, and then I will go through and look and see if there are any questions in the comments for us for this. So let me just scroll through. Sorry. Okay. So what if my toddler only eats one thing and ignores the rest on the tray? And that's a good possibility. That's totally normal. That could happen. And again, it's more about exposure and no pressure, and just keep offering familiar food, keep trying, and over time, their comfort with whatever the new food is will increase, and they'll be more likely to try it. Someone else asked, what do I do if my toddler will only eat the crunchy snacks? So again, the same type of thing. Again, if you know that they're going to tend to only eat one of the foods, let's say it is the crunchy food for this particular person, try adjusting the portion sizes. So make sure that the crunchy food is in smaller amounts, like slightly smaller. That way they're kind of almost forced, if they're still hungry, to try something, one of their other safe foods. It's not always that same food over and over again. And that's like one strategy, try to get them to eat some of the other food. But again, you don't want to make it so much lower that the other ones look overwhelming, just slightly lower. Another question that came up was, what if my toddler just outright refuses to try anything? And that's okay. This tends to work for a lot of people that I've worked with on this, but if for some reason they don't, then you can try a different strategy. They have divided trays that you can use. You can try having them pick different objects, or not objects, but like different plates, wherever they want to use. Maybe if they have a choice in the plate, they might be more likely to try it. But again, I would try, if you're worried about this, with snack time first, something a little bit more low key, and then build up to a meal for this. And the last question was, what if my toddler just plays with the food instead of eating? Now, this might be a little frustrating to hear, and I'm so sorry to Jen who sent this, but that's okay. That's kind of the beauty of this, is that just by getting them to play with it, you're increasing their awareness of the food. And there's a whole process, especially with sensory eaters, and to kind of break down some of the picky eating. But you want kids to explore food when they're younger through their senses, because that makes them a lot more likely to interact and try it. So it's a win, and it's a good thing if they're willing to play with the food. Now, at some point, obviously, they have to eat something, so you can't just let them play for an hour and not eat dinner and send them to bed. So you're going to kind of have to shift and modify that a little bit, but resist the urge to put the pressure on them to eat. Let them play. Usually what happens is, as they're playing, they'll start to get hungry and start to eat a little bit. So, and that is it for all of the questions that I was sent. Now I'm just going to pull up real quick and see the comments. Okay, so that looks like it for the questions and comments. All right, so hopefully this tip makes your mealtime just a little bit easier for you. And if you try the tasting tray hack, please let me know. Feel free to tag me on socials. On all socials, my handle is Raising My Teenage Toddler. And you can also send me a DM. I'd love to see it. And again, if you found this tip helpful, please follow me for more real-life practical toddler tips. And you can always go to our website, get any of our freebies to get on our email list. So you can get more freebies sent to your email as well. And before I forget, we will probably not be live next week only because my family is traveling on Tuesday. So I don't think I will be able to get on live at 8 o'clock. But if that changes, I will definitely send an email and post on social so that you know, but we might have to skip for next week. But I will still send out the blog post with the tip and post the socials. We just might not have a chance to do this Q&A portion. But again, if you found this tip helpful, find me on socials. And until the next time I see you, happy eating and good luck. Bye, everyone.